There was a party for monsters in the old haunted house. Witches flew to the crumbling old mansion on their broomsticks, their forms almost eclipsing the full moon. That same full moon brought forth werewolves, who licked their lips as they approached the house, no doubt thinking of the treats that would be served. Vampires flew out of their coffins and ghosts floated out of their graves, all to attend the party they had been invited to. Even though I was a human, I had been invited too. I asked Shannon if she wanted to come as well, but she was far too scared. I, on the other hand, had been interested in horror ever since I was a child, and had always dreamed of meeting Dracula or Frankenstein in the flesh. So off I went to the big haunted mansion, the dark shadow that loomed over our entire town. Up the tall hill I walked, until I reached the front porch of the monochrome manse. A mummy shambled towards the front door, not even acknowledging my existence, and bats swooped down the chimney. Even though I had been looking forward to this event, I still took a deep breath before I stepped in, preparing myself for anything the monsters might do to me. Though the main hall was covered with dust and cobwebs, the bifurcate staircase, the marble floor, and the chandelier gave it a sense of grandeur. This environment made the smell of blood and rotting meat actually smell inviting, and I actually found myself wanting to join the werewolves in their feast. In fact, I did. As if pulled by an invisible force, I walked towards the table filled with body parts and joined the werewolves in chewing an arm. Though I thought any second they would pounce on me and chew on my arm, they just ignored me. Actually, I think one werewolf even smiled at me. I couldn't help but wish Shannon was there. I felt she would have enjoyed this. Then I went over to the vampires, all of them with pale skin, pointed ears and fangs and black robes. A large cauldron of blood, stirred by a witch. Some of them dipped chalices into the cauldron, but some drank straight from the cauldron. One vampire dared me to do the latter, and, without hesitation, I dipped my head into the blood and lapped it up. Something about it reminded me of Shannon. I wanted to drink more, but something drove my body away from it. Something drove me to talk to the other monsters. No, not just other monsters. There were other humans like me. I joined the other humans in chatting with the mummies and the ghosts. I think Shannon would have liked them. Then I ate body parts with the werewolves again. Then I drank blood with the vampires again. Then I chatted with the ghosts and mummies and humans again. Then I ate with the werewolves. Then I drank blood. Then I chatted. Then I ate. Then I drank. Then I chatted. Then a new monster arose, and everyone stood still. I attempted to move, but every muscle in my body was frozen. This monster wasn't a vampire or werewolf or witch. The only way I could describe it was as a blob, one that looked like it was made up of spoiled milk. Smelled like it too. "I hope you're all enjoying your little party," said the creature, raising an arm that appeared out of nowhere. As he raised his arm, all of us took a step forward. He lowered his arm and we took a couple of steps back. "You are partying because I want you to party. When you're partying, you can't hurt anyone. So enjoy your food and games, because you're going to be staying here quite a while." The figure disappeared, but his influence remained. He forced my body to eat and drink and chat over and over again, and I could do nothing to stop him. All I could think about was Shannon. How lovely she was. How lovely it was when I strangled her. Sunshine gleamed straight through my eyes as if my eyelids were simply glass. I always hated sunlight. It's just too happy. The moon seems better, and don't call me a werewolf or anything senseless like that. I just prefer the quieter and more somber tone of the moonlight. It gives me peace. It's something I can always look forward to after a long day of work. I closed the blinds to stop letting the sunshine in. Instantly I felt a strong sensation of relief. The small state of Wisconsin had always been too sunny to me. Then again, any place that has the least bit of sunshine I probably hate too, and think it also is too sunny for me. Heck, even Washington, where I came from, is too sunny for me, and it's known as the rain state. I walked towards the kitchen to get a glass of water. Grabbing the large glass cup, I went to the sink and flipped it on, ready for the flow of the liquid that gives life to shower into my cup. However, I was greeted with just 4 or 5 drips of water and then nothing. I had heard about the drought of Salis here, even from how little I go out. People talk about it on the internet, the newspaper, things like that. It hadn't affected me, so I never really paid attention to it until now. The moon pulled the tides of water, essentially making water at the mercy of the moon. A servant, if you please. Anything related to the moon is quite dear to me, so I had to go investigate. I browsed the internet for at least what I thought was an hour, looking for some source of the drought. It's odd with the drought. Just 2 days ago it rained plentiful, and rain isn't too uncommon, so no one knows where the drought is from. I tracked down the central pipe that dispenses water in our city. In our town, there's this huge water tower underground which everyone connects their houses to. It's odd. Who would put a water tower underground? I had to do another hour of searching just to find the address of the tower. It seems almost as if it was supposed to be hidden. I exited my house with the address printed onto a white slip of paper. I took off with my puny little bicycle. I've had the bike ever since I was a little child. Ignore the sunshine, I told myself. I felt angst as I was riding in the sun, and my throat was parched. I had to get myself something to drink. I stopped my bike near a rack in a gas station. I went through the front door, looking for a water fountain. Not seeing anything to drink from there, I guess I only had the option to buy a water bottle. I looked into my pocket for some cash. I had about $2, or about 1.50 euros for the people in the UK. I looked at the price of the water bottle. It was a whopping $5, once again for the U.K, about 3.50. The drought was way worse than I had originally thought it was. Worried, I even checked the bathroom to see if there was any water in them. They stunk awfully, as there was not a single drip of water in the toilets, so they had nothing to reduce the stench or flush the waste down. I hastily exited the bathroom and headed back my bike. Another thing I noticed was that there seemed to be slightly less people out today. By normal people's standards, today would have been a beautiful day, but there were as many people as there would be on a very quiet one. I continued biking towards my destination, address in one hand, both grasped onto the handlebars. I wasn't as good as I used to be, my hands were shaky due to dehydration, and it had been a while since I rode my tiny bike. After about 10 minutes of riding, I finally found my destination, mostly by accident. I rode over a manhole and fell off, scraping my elbows badly. A groan of pain and disgust left my mouth, looking at the raw and bloodied skin. Once I regained from the dust and dirt on the ground, I inspected the manhole's top more closely, wiping the grime off. It read Salis Fair Water Storage, and some dates and names that were so grungy that it made it impossible to read. I went through the entrance, leaving it open for the light. I stepped down the ladder. The shaft didn't have a single source of light, so I had to let the sunshine guide me. It was the first time I didn't despise its existence. Once I stepped off the ladder, I noted that I was in a tunnel made of cracked and rusted stone and iron. It went down, and there seemed to be various shafts to the left and right. But looking down, I saw a dim light. I slowly walked down the stone steps, making sure that I didn't trip or fall. I was halfway there, and the sunlight was completely gone. I swear I saw a silhouette of a figure with disfigured, long fingers at the end of the tunnel for a split second. It just dashed past. I hesitated on continuing. I contemplated what I could have seen. Maybe it was just a man running by, in a hurry to get things working. It was probable, but most likely I was just hallucinating. I hadn't any water in about 36 hours, I was injured, and I rode my bike, so I was exhausted mentally and physically. I decided to resume my careful walk towards the light in the tunnel, watchful for that thing. I did a quick search of things I might be able to use as a weapon. All I had was a bunch of sand in my bag. I finally reached the light and was greeted with a huge square room, dimly lit. I looked around for some kind of light I'd be able to pull to make it brighter, and I found a switch. Flicking it, I heard a loud buzz, and the lights came on. I wish I hadn't turned the lights on. I should have left. I should have just ignored the drought and assumed it would be over soon. Or maybe, I just should have left the town entirely to ignore the drought, because then I wouldn't have been able to see that horror. I saw piles of bodies, hundreds, maybe even thousands, on the floor, still bleeding. Women, men, and even children. They had giant red gashes. You'd see the veins ripped out and thrown, and the sickest part? Some were still alive. They were moaning, and in weak, tired voices, begging for help. I realized what the cause of the drought was. Where the bodies were lying were in the exact same spot where water should have been. The bodies were clogging the water. Rarely any water was getting through, but it'd be going through those dead, mangled bodies, full of with blood and bacteria. Then I had another question. What sick monster could have done this? 1 week ago I moved away from Salis Fair. I can't stand thinking about that horrid place nowadays. That creature killed everyone in my old town. It hunts people down like a savage. People have been disappearing lately all over America, and the radius is spreading. I'm concerned I'll be next. Though, there's one more thing that worries me in my new town. There seems to be a drought going on. The sun had set. The great shadows came striding over the forest. In the weird twilight of a late summer day, I saw the path ahead glide on among the mighty trees and disappear. And I shuddered and glanced fearfully over my shoulder. Miles behind lay the nearest village, miles ahead the next. I looked to left and to right as I strode on, and anon I looked behind me. And anon I stopped short, grasping my rapier, as a breaking twig betokened the going of some small beast. Or was it a beast? But the path led on and I followed, because, forsooth, I had naught else to do. As I went I bethought me, my own thoughts will root me, if I be not aware. What is there in this forest, except perhaps the creatures that roam it, deer and the like? Tush, the foolish legends of those villagers. And so I went and the twilight faded into dusk. Stars began to blink and the leaves of the trees murmured in the faint breeze. And then I stopped short, my sword leaping to my hand, for just ahead, around a curve of the path, someone was singing. The words I could not distinguish, but the accent was strange, almost barbaric. I stepped behind a great tree, and the cold sweat beaded my forehead. Then the singer came in sight, a tall, thin man, vague in the twilight. I shrugged my shoulders. A man I did not fear. I sprang out, my point raised. "Stand." He showed no surprise. "I prithee, handle thy glade with care, friend," he said. Somewhat ashamed, I lowered my sword. "I am new to this forest," I quoth, apologetically. "I heard talk of bandits. I crave pardon. Where lies the road to Villa Fia?" "Corblay, you've missed it," he answered. "You should have branched off to the right some distance back. I am going there myself. If you may abide my company, I will direct you." I hesitated. Yet why should I hesitate? "Why, certainly. My name is de Monta, of Normandy. And I am Carolus La Loupe." "No." I started back. He looked at me in astonishment. "Pardon," said I, "the name is strange. Does not Loupe mean wolf?" "My family were always great hunters," he answered. He did not offer his hand. "You will pardon my staring," said I as we walked down the path, "but I can hardly see your face in the dusk." I sensed that he was laughing, though he made no sound. "It is little to look upon," he answered. I stepped closer and then leapt away, my hair bristling. "A mask!" I exclaimed. "Why do you wear a mask, m'sie?" "It is a vow," he exclaimed. "In fleeing a pack of hounds I vowed that if I escaped I would wear a mask for a certain time." "Hounds, m'sie?" "Wolves," he answered quickly. I said wolves. We walked in silence for a while and then my companion said, "I am surprised that you walk these woods by night. Few people come these ways even in the day." "I am in haste to reach the border," I answered. "A treaty has been signed with the English, and the Duke of Burgundy should know of it. The people at the village sought to dissuade me. They spoke of a wolf that was purported to roam these woods. Here the path branches to Villafia," said he, and I saw a narrow, crooked path that I had not seen when I passed it before. It led in amid the darkness of the trees. I shuddered. "You wish to return to the village?" "No," I exclaimed. "No, no. Lead on." So narrow was the path that we walked single file, he leading. I looked well at him. He was taller, much taller than I, and thin, wiry. He was dressed in a costume that smacked of Spain. A long rapier swung at his hip. He walked with long easy strides, noiselessly. Then he began to talk of travel and adventure. He spoke of many lands and seas he had seen and many strange things. So we talked and went farther and farther into the forest. I presumed that he was French, and yet he had a very strange accent, that was neither French nor Spanish nor English, not like any language I had ever heard. Some words he slurred strangely and some he could not pronounce at all. "This path is often used, is it?" I asked. "Not by many," he answered and laughed silently. I shuddered. It was very dark and the leaves whispered together among the branches. "A fiend haunts this forest," I said. "So the peasants say," he answered, "but I have roamed it oft and have never seen his face." Then he began to speak of strange creatures of darkness, and the moon rose and shadows glided among the trees. He looked up at the moon. "Haste," said he. "We must reach our destination before the moon reaches her zenith." We hurried along the trail. "They say," said I, "that a werewolf haunts these woodlands." "It might be," said he, and we argued much upon the subject. "The old women say," said he, "that if a werewolf is slain while a wolf, then he is slain. But if he is slain as a man, then his half-soul will haunt his slayer forever. But haste thee, the moon nears her zenith. We came into a small moonlit glade and the stranger stopped. "Let us pause a while," said he. "Nay, let us be gone," I urged. "I like not this place." He laughed without sound. "Why," said he, "this is a fair glade. As good as a banquet hall it is, and many times have I feasted here. Ha! 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 Look ye, I will show you a dance." And he began bounding here and there, anon flinging back his head and laughing silently. Thought I, the man is mad. As he danced his weird dance I looked about me. The trail went not on but stopped in the glade. "Come," said I, "we must on. Do you not smell the rank, hairy scent that hovers about the glade? Wolves den here. Perhaps they are about us and are gliding upon us even now." He dropped upon all fours, bounded higher than my head, and came toward me with a strange slinking motion. "That dance is called the dance of the wolf," said he, and my hair bristled. "Keep off." I stepped back, and with a screech that set the echoes shuddering he leapt for me, and though a sword hung at his belt he did not draw it. My rapier was half out when he grasped my arm and flung me headlong. I dragged him with me and we struck the ground together. Wrenching a hand free I jerked off the mask. A shriek of horror broke from my lips. Beast eyes glittered beneath that mask, white fangs flashed in the moonlight. The face was that of a wolf. In an instant those fangs were at my throat. Taloned hands tore the sword from my grasp. I beat at that horrible face with my clenched fists, but his jaws were fastened on my shoulders, his talons tore at my throat. Then I was on my back. The world was fading. Blindly I struck out. My hand dropped, then closed automatically about the hilt of my dagger, which I had been unable to get at. I drew and stabbed. A terrible, half-bestial bellowing screech. Then I reeled to my feet, free. At my feet lay the werewolf. I stooped, raised the dagger, then paused, looked up. The moon hovered close to her zenith. If I slew the thing as a man, its frightful spirit would haunt me forever. I sat down waiting. The thing watched me with flaming wolf eyes. The long wiry limbs seemed to shrink, to crook, hair seemed to grow upon them. Fearing madness, I snatched up the thing's own sword and hacked it to pieces. Then I flung the sword away and fled.